Hockey Inside Out, brought to you by Videotron. We're back with another episode of Hockey Inside Out. I'm happy to have Chris Nyland and Jack Todd joining me today. The Canadiens just seem to keep putting points in the bank, Chris, and they keep beating the Boston Bruins. Why do they have the Bruins number?
Well, you know, the rivalry, one thing for sure, that carries over. It's since the beginning of the time, that rivalry has been just incredible. But the Boston Bruins, what always ends up beating them against the Montreal Canadiens is their undisciplined play. They get crazy. They play up to the fandom in Boston. The Boston fans, everybody hates Montreal, yeah, and Montreal hates Boston. And when that game gets intense, and you got to give the Canadiens credit, they stood up to the aggression. They initiated right away, which you have to do in that building, and you have to stand up for each other. They did that, and again, the Boston Bruins, they did not play discipline. It's the same things that kept them from not winning a round against the Montreal Canadiens until 1988.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jack, the Canadiens could be the only Canadian team in the playoffs this year. It's been a while since that's happened.
Yeah, apparently, I haven't had a chance to check this myself, but it's been since 1973 that the last time there was only one team in the playoffs, and that would have been the Canadiens too, one Canadian team. Toronto is still on the bubble. I think Vancouver still has an outside shot of getting in, but I think there's a very good chance. And, you know, I go on Twitter, people knock Michel Therrien, they knock Marc Bergevin up one side and down the other, but it's a results-oriented sport. They're heading back to the playoffs, and they're heading back in a solid position. They're not scrambling for a wild card spot. They're in there.
Yeah. Now, in the Boston game, Emelin threw a classic hip check on Lucic. Did you have a problem with that hit, Chris?
Not at all. I thought it was a great check. You don't see it as much anymore, and I just didn't. The problem I had was Lucic afterwards. You know, the week before he's saying, oh, it's a great matchup, he plays hard, this and that. And now he's calling him a chicken. And, you know, if you want to call a guy a chicken and you have a good basis for it, then fine. But if you're a chicken yourself, like he was when he had to face off against George Laraque, and Laraque chased him around the rink and he ducked him, to me that's a chicken. And you don't give me the argument about, oh, I'm a good hockey player and you're not, so I won't fight you. Fighting is in his repertoire, Lucic, and he backed away, he backed down, and he's really the chicken.
Especially spearing a guy from behind.
And he's a buffoon on top of it.
Yeah.
Now, the fourth line of Moen, Prust, and Weiss looked so good together. Now they're all hurt. Travis Moen took a bit of a beating there in Boston, Jack.
Yeah.
Can you come back from this, or what's your thought on what happened there?
You know, I hate to make any kind of diagnosis because you just don't know, but, you know, my father was a boxer. He used to call that being put on Queer Street, and he was definitely there when he went off the ice. He was in bad shape. You know, a guy, especially an older guy, is taking a lot of shots like that. You got to be really scared for him, and if he does come back, I think his fighting days are over. Yeah.
Now, how big was it for the team, for him to stand up for a teammate and do what he did?
It's a big thing. You have to do that in Boston. You look at Boston when Emelin, you know, ended up hitting Lucic. Chara comes and hits him. Ginla comes in, jabs him with his stick. Everybody's like there. It's like a pack of wolves. You know, the Canadiens, I give them so much credit. They stood up to it. And that's an important thing, what Travis Moen did. Listen, I hate to see him get hurt. And a lot of times you don't see guys get concussions in a hockey fight. It's happened, some of late. But, you know, it's unfortunate. But it's a big thing. It rubs off on your teammates. It gives your teammates a sense of security, too, knowing that guys are going to be there for you. You know, as long as the league allows that, you're going to see it.
Now, another guy who played a big game in Boston is Douglas Murray. You know, some Habs fans wonder about him. He's slow, Jack, but he's so strong. I mean, he could go in one of those world's strongest man competitions, I think. He knocked Lucic on his butt in front of the net. What's your thought on the way he's performed?
You know, he's a powerful guy. He's one of the favorite targets of the advanced stats analysts in town because they all look at it and they say, well, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. If he hits you, you stay hit. I remember what happened to Mike Ribeiro when he was in here. One hit from Murray is equal to like 5 or 6 from another player. And especially at some point, if the Canadiens are going to go deep, it's got to be Philadelphia and Boston. And he's a key guy for meeting those two teams.
He's the kind of guy think you would have liked to have on your team?
Certainly need him. He's awesome. You know, listen, he didn't come here in shape. He was out of shape. He got himself in shape. And listen, he's no Eric Heiden. He's never going to be. But the fact of the matter is, when he goes in the corner, he comes up with the puck. He hits. He's a presence in front of the net. He plays his position well. He's smart on the ice. He doesn't have to be a great skater the way he plays. He plays his position so well. He blocks shots. He's great on the PK. And him and Mike the Dream Weaver. I mean, come on.
Well, Weaver, Jack, the more I watch this guy play, the more I like him. He's throwing himself in front of blocking shots, got no visor on, going down to block shots. He played 20 minutes against the Bruins. He looks like just a character guy. Another good pickup by the GM.
Yeah, brilliant pickup by Bergevin, because he's really completely replaced Josh Georges with what's considered a minor transaction. It's not going to be minor going into the playoffs to have a guy like that. He's one of their most useful 2 or 3 defensemen right now because of what he's doing defensively. I love the guy. Never noticed him when he was in Florida.
Yeah. But, he had a great line. He says, "I can't score goals, so I got to do something." Right?
Well,
So he seems
put your face in front of that puck.
Simple play. He's a guy you win with. Again, he. I think what you look at the transaction when we get him. Oh, Mike Weaver, and I was like, okay, they got Weaver. It's a depth thing. We got another D-man. Fact of the matter is. We didn't see him a whole lot down there, right?
Yeah.
You don't see a play, you know the name,
Get lost
but you
in
don't
Florida,
see him
that's
play.
it.
Then you see him play a few games, you go, wow, this guy can do it. And he really adds a lot to this team as far as that goes. He's a good team guy, and he'll do anything to win.
Bergevin's definitely made some great moves, and that's why this team is going to be going to the playoffs. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back to Hockey Inside Out. Now, Jack, one of the things that GM Marc Bergevin seems to have done is change the culture of this team.
Yeah, it's a huge change, and I think it's kind of underrated. To me, under Bob Gainey, to a lesser extent, but for sure under Pierre Gauthier, this was the most uptight organization in probably all of professional sports. And Bergevin comes in. First of all, he's a clown. He's known as a practical joker, all these things. And right away, everybody loosens up, everybody's happier, everybody's less tense, and it affects the off-ice people, but it affects the team even more. I just see this in all these little ways, like J.J. Daniel being allowed to do interviews while the game is in progress. When Gauthier was here, an assistant coach couldn't even talk off the record, all these things do is they put less pressure on the players, so they can concentrate on playing because they're not worried. Well, am I going to have to eat a vegan meal if we play like crap tonight? Things like this, and as much as Bergevin, I see all this garbage about, well, he paid Desharnais too much, or he paid Briere too much, or why did he bring in Murray? I think we're seeing the answer to all those things now. But beyond all the player moves, it's just changing the whole mood around this team and making it possible. Look how tight Toronto is now.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's not happened to the Canadiens.
Now, his biggest move, of course, was hiring a coach, Michel Therrien. What do you like about what Michel Therrien has done, Chris?
His biggest move, really, to change the culture, I think, was putting cookies back on the plane. I know the previous GM took cookies off the plane because they weren't good for the guys. So, that being said, hiring Michel Bergeron, Michel Therrien, when he first hired him, I said this was a will do. It'll do for now, this move, And, not thinking that this guy might have possibly changed his ways since Pittsburgh, and I think he has. He's come in here. He's instilled some discipline in this team. He's done some good things here. And regardless of what anybody says, and you can point, he didn't pull the goalie here, bench PK here. He's done some things that may not be popular with the fan base and had to be done in his eyes, and it's helped this team. I mean, they're third in the conference. Who would have thunk? I had them 7-8 this year in the conference, and they certainly, he gets them to overachieve to some extent, but also there's a good core of players here, awesome goaltender, and you got to give him some credit. He's done a good job.
Now, Jack, you brought up an interesting thing in one of your columns, sort of comparing the relationship with Mario Tremblay and Patrick Roy and the relationship with P.K. Subban and Michel Therrien. Is that something going forward that is going to be a big concern?
I think this is the flashpoint that Therrien has to watch out for, because there's obviously not a lot of love lost between Subban and Therrien. Whatever they say in public, you get things like the epic long shift there and things like that. The coach and the player aren't really on the same page. I think Subban has handled it with a lot of class. He said nothing publicly to throw, oil on the flames or anything. But watch out, because they got to sign this guy, and you don't want that to be a factor. And you don't ever want the day when Subban goes, after a game and goes to Bergevin and says, "I played my last game."
Yeah.
Don't want that.
The big factor in signing him again is what they do in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm be surprised that if they don't get out of the first round, that if he gets signed again. I shouldn't say I'd be surprised. I'm not sure what will happen there. You lose. You have 2 first-round exits in the playoffs. Do they bring him back? Or are they looking for something more? The guy's, he's done a good job in the regular season. It's the playoffs that will tell the story.
They could have Dallas Eakins behind the bench. He seemed more upset about getting his suit wet than about the team losing. I know he's one of your favorites.
That's a little much for me.
Worst coach in the NHL.
Just tell him to wear a raincoat next time.
Now, Peter Budaj is 5-2 against the Bruins' lifetime, 5-0 in Boston. What's the difference mentality when you're a player, when you're backup goalies in there, Chris? Do you approach the game differently?
I don't know. Well, yes, you do. A lot of times, when we had Patrick in there, we just knew, okay, Patrick's in, we're okay, you go and play a game. And then when the backup will go in, Brian Hayward, you could see the guys become more intense. They talk more in the room. We got to be on our toes tonight. There is a bit of difference in the way the team plays. You want to give that kid an opportunity to get a win too, and Budaj's been spectacular in Boston.
Now with Weaver and Douglas Murray playing, Jack, Tenorti's been a healthy scratch for a few games. Do you worry about, is Michel Therrien handling the young players correctly?
Well, there are questions all over the ice. Again, with Galchenyuk, I don't think there's any problems. Gallagher, a couple of the other young players, though, it's like they're in and out of the lineup, and it's their confidence. When he made that blunder the other night, Tenorti, and then he doesn't play the next game after that, I thought that was a mistake. Like, I want to throw him right back out there, and don't let him sit there in the press box and brood about it for 2 or 3 or 4 games. But he came back against Buffalo. He looked okay. Obviously, he didn't make any mistakes. They didn't score any goals. But, I don't think that is Therrien's strength, is dealing with the young players. But then I look at Edmonton and see how to really mess it up. And at least he isn't following the Dallas Eakins playbook.
In defense of the coach on that one, Tenorti, that wasn't his only mistake. It may look like he got benched for that, but he had a couple of tough games where he had giveaways. Early in that game, the big guy walked him early. He came down on the outside, and he went down, and the guy walked inside him and got a really good shot. He bid on the outside move. Here's a big defenseman who has to learn to keep guys out of the middle and let him have the outside. His range, his reach, he'll be able to defend against it. He gave the middle away. So it wasn't only that play. There were a couple of mistakes, big mistakes he made in that game.
Now, the kid Galchenyuk, that over the shootout goal, Jack, that was a heck of a move. This kid just seems to be getting better and better.
You look at what's happened with him and what's happened with Yakupov in Edmonton, the first and third picks, and honestly, the Habs have done so much better with Galchenyuk. I don't know if he was a better player to begin with, but he's on track to be just about anything except a defensive center. Wonderful talents. I think, when you look 4 or 5 years down the road, this is the guy that has the talent to bring the Habs to another level. The one that's a cut above anything you've seen around here for a while.
He's got to be insulated. You got to get some big guys with him. He needs that protection. You can't get him mugged out there. He needs a big, tough winger with him. Another guy with him, someone that can put the puck in the net.
A lot of people want him playing center. You worry about him playing center in his own zone, right?
Listen, coaches don't want to get fired, okay? He has to make the playoffs. This experiment with him at center right now, I don't think is the right move. You're going down the stretch. If you watch him, there's times he gets caught at the first guy back in the zone. He plays 3-on-3 down low, and he gets a little lost. He gets staring at the puck. He loses his man. This is something I really feel would be good for him next year. Now, on the power play, it's a different story, but next year, I think he should start playing center, not this year.
All right. That's it for another episode of Hockey Inside Out. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Jack, for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode.